I mean, yeah, oh, there we go. So the display template, I'm working on that. I'm just gonna make a whole new PR. Just the old one is so
Okay.
messed up. I just really messed that one up. It's what force pushing gets you, which is what rebase gets you, but never mind.
No,
That's a whole other
I
thing.
like rebase. You just got to make sure you're good before you force push.
Yep, yep. But all right, we could debate that till the cows come home. But so there's also, kiln stuff to discuss. I don't know if you have stuff. At some point we wanted to go over e-filing in general, to try and like pass on that knowledge, but I don't know when that, if that should be a separate like whole thing.
We can do that. I can fill the space with e-filing.
Um,
We should do the
Well.
practical things first because the e-filing will be a lot. But
yeah, I can look over what's going on with AL Kiln. GitHub. There's some documentation to update. Like I think my next main thing would be, let me just check on the playground upload step, I think needs a review, and that's some relatively big changes. So if we could put some time to that, that would be useful. I can link it in Zoom chat. And then like after these things that are in here, there's so many things to do, but I think figuring out the random input step would be really exciting. Yes. So are you looking at the pull request? Do you want to share your screen or?
sorry, yeah, I am looking at the question.
So you have so much more contrast. It's really nice on GitHub.
You know it?
No,
I don't think I have anything
my
special.
lines
set up like
are,
GitHub. Maybe I do actually.
maybe it's just Firefox, but
No, actually, maybe I do. Let me check.
no, let's check that another day.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
There it is. Oh no, yeah. Okay, actually, no. This is useful and practical. Settings, appearance, light, high contrast. If you like it, you can just change it, and GitHub will change what they send for your CSS.
Didn't even know appearance was a thing on GitHub. Okay.
I forgot that I did this,
Cool.
but I flagged it. So
Yeah. Okay.
cool.
So some stuff, like you said, I'm just merging. Like I've made it possible for admins to bypass the requirements for review with the checkbox. It's red. So yeah. Because as you said, you don't have as much time. So this has a behavior change as well as an S3, as well as getting S3, which I could break them out into 2 changes. But if you have limited time, it might just be better to do it in one. And I would say if we first look at run cucumber, that's like the simplest thing to look at, not run cucumber. Where is the
nothing? Run cucumber is
S3
not being
change?
changed.
Huh?
Run cucumber is not being changed. Just scope and legs.
S3 though. Scope. Oh, right, because it's upload, right? So we can look at the. Let me see what line is a good place to start, because there's a bunch of stuff that all depends on this other thing. I think starting on 1784 or 1785, I suppose. is the way to go, and I switched to using Fast Glob. So like this changed a lot.
Yeah, what's the difference between Flash Glob and Glob?
I wasn't using Glob in here before, so that doesn't really matter.
Okay,
The advantage for me at the time was that it didn't need the latest node.
oh, okay,
I kind of want to degrade my docassemble local server to not use the latest node so that I can experience what it's like for people who don't have the latest node. But I did put in the change log, I think,
yes,
yeah,
it's
Docker
like-
update is required. So
and I'll like make a comment and save this at some point.
whoa, paste, it pasted.
I just clicked the suggest button.
Oh, I
I
see.
haven't changed anything yet, but I'll go back and I'll edit this to add the actual like version or like Docker container version that it needs to be at.
And the node
and-
version.
Yeah,
Oh,
and the
I
node
guess
version.
we don't need the node version in here
Yeah,
if
we
they're
probably-
updating
I
the
don't think we need
container.
the node version, but I don't know what the node version needs to be either exactly. I don't know how to
Okay.
figure that out easily.
18.
Does it need to be
I think-
18?
Oh.
Or is it just like need to be
Right
greater
now
than
it
12?
doesn't, right now it doesn't matter because I made it work on node 12. But
Okay,
I think just going to 18 is, I mean, that's what the Docker container is going to, so.
yes, okay. Yeah, but
Okay.
I can at least put which Docker container, so it's not just people who have already updated need to like update again when they probably don't.
Yeah,
So,
so scope.js line 1786, I think is
1786,
where
okay.
we can start the tricky stuff.
yeah, okay. What is answer?
The
First
answer
question.
to the question, right? The answer to the field.
What is that? That's the thing we're uploading?
That's the name of the file.
Okay. I would maybe,
Well, it's if you see it's an object with keys. So that's the key we're gonna get. We can rename it, which we do that on line 1786, upload names equals answer.split. Right? So we change that to an understandable name. And we just use answer to give a message to the user if the files are missing.
is it keys or is it just a list of files?
It's a string
Okay,
that we split into a list of files.
okay. That's fair. It doesn't have to be called like file to upload, but I feel like answer is a far jump from like, okay, I need to like,
Every input to a field is called answer. It's got a handle and an answer. Those are the keys. So
I'm
those are the keys
aware.
that are coming in.
I'm aware.
Okay.
It's not, if I go to upload files, it's not clear that that's what's being sent here. And I don't think calling it answer helps with that because I wouldn't, it's like, I don't know. For me, I'm perfectly fine with like calling answer with something like a parameter called answer. That makes sense from the caller's perspective, but from the upload files perspective, I have no idea what answer is.
So what do you suggest? Changing.
What you have just described it as a like list of files is more clear to me than, or like string of files is more clear to me what it is.
But what do you
than
suggest changing in the code to make that
Just-
name, to change the name of answer to list of files or string of files?
just, what do you mean changing in the code
Like, where do you want to rename that?
right here?
But we
And right
can't
here.
because that's the key. in the object.
Oh,
That's what I'm saying. It's the key that is handed in the object. That's just destructuring the object.
okay. That's okay. I think I missed whenever you said key, I was confused because I thought you meant you were passing in an object, and this is just silly. Don't like no destructuring.
But if it gets it direct, like like one of the first line of code in the function changes its name to upload names. Like that's the first line of code that's in this function.
That's not where I usually read functions, though. I usually read because I'm like, if something comes in like, and this isn't typed, like we're not dealing with like some sort of type language where I can look at answer and what it is. Like for me, I always start with what is the thing. And even though the first line is like answer split, it's like, okay, who's passing answer in and what is it actually? Like is the thing that it does throw me off. And it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's the most generic, it covers everything. And all answers are strings. They all come in as a string. But at some point we can head to TypeScript and then we can work on, making those more explicit. There's just nothing we can do about it right now, is what I'm saying.
We could not do object destructuring, but that's probably too big of a thing, and maybe it's just a me issue. So, all right.
There might be a way to destructure and rename at the same time. Regardless, that's kind of not the point of this
Yeah,
function.
I
It's
know.
it's a good note for refactoring.
It's a thing that I'm reading through, and if I don't understand it, I will mention it out loud since we're here.
Yeah, we're here.
And this get changes annoying because the diffs do not make a lot of sense. But that's
Oh,
just an issue.
I can get rid of lines 802 to 804.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to make a suggestion for myself there.
Cool.
Let's now fix that. Come on.
For this comment, yes, we should save the full directory.
Okay. You want to add a comment there?
Yeah.
I know sometimes that can lead people down the wrong path because if it's an S3 thing and the glob is weird and stuff like that, that's the only reservation I had there.
Well, what do you mean by that exactly?
So the whole glob, right, is might just look a little weird because I guess it looks less weird now that But like if someone says temp playground sources,
Mhm.
then kind of what is their thought process gonna be? That's all.
Maybe it's a devlog thing. I know that's where we other times put stuff that is like, you don't need to know about this, but someone will need to know this to fix the issue at some point. Like, that's where we put that stuff in the past. And
Okay,
we should record it, mostly because it's a thing that, like, I am thinking, if I don't have this, I would not be able to solve an issue like this. If someone was coming and tell me the test files need to be in the sources directory, the first thing I check is be like, oh, well, what's the directory it's globbing, and is it what we expect it to be?
yeah,
And so I would need to know that, and I would go and add that log line. So
okay. It might be
um,
multiple places it looked, but that still might be fine.
that's fine, yeah. Well,
Um,
because this is only going to be empty if there's nothing, right?
okay, so maybe just, I mean, it'll only be empty if there were no matches. So if it couldn't find the file, but that doesn't mean
Yes.
it still could have multiple directories. So just add that it could be a dev thingamajiggy, because I would love to say that I'd remember. Um, that was great. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, I can take out 130, 1838 as well.
Were we doing this before? Yeah, I guess we were doing this before.
We were just like adding these, added another layer to all those checks. That was kind of getting ridiculous.
Sorry,
Very
not
hard
the
to read.
not the checks. Were we doing this thing where we always looked in this, where we only looked in one directory for all of the things to upload?
Yeah, we were only looking in one directory.
Does that
Make sense?
make sense
Uh,
now with how S3 is doing stuff where things can potentially be in temp or sometimes in sources or source playground source or whatever?
but it only looks in temp. This only looks in temp. It won't, once it finds something, I mean, it's not gonna look in. Also, I don't think S3 has it anywhere else. I mean, we don't look anywhere else for it to get it from the actual S3 server. We would have to authenticate with S3. So we're not looking on the S3 server.
Yeah, we're not looking at the S3 server, but so I guess if this is we have a heavy assumption that it's going to be one or the other of these two directories, and it won't be both at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay.
If we want, we can try looking at both places, but I'm not sure what our behavior then should be. Should we upload all the files we find? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, we could say that.
Yeah, it feels like there's like just a really slight like semantic change, whereas felt like when I read,
I mean,
because we
we
were doing this before, but when I
yes,
read
we
it
were.
before, it was like, oh, a shortcut because everything is going to be at like everything is going to be at this one path, and we have all these different whereas package paths where like we were just trying to hack through being able to like have the right that should be one place. Absolute path. I don't know. I feel like it just has slightly different meaning when I read it now than it did before. And not that that's bad. It's just it threw me off of it.
Yeah. I mean, this behavior is one of the things I wanted to check up on, and if we should try to use alders and just find.
It doesn't feel like we lose anything from using alters.
Okay.
Like I can't imagine a time where there are two different things in these two directories. It'll either be like the exact same thing in both directories, or there might be a weird case where something's only in one of them. But I can't think of a time where something's going to be in both and they're going to be different and someone will only want one of them,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Okay, let me see.
And it's a simple fix. I think we just get rid of these three lines. And so we're always looking through every dir.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and also.
Oh, and also the
There.
else and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we can do it. I think this was also when I was concerned that like a ton of DIRs were being found, because at some point, like I was just finding a ton of things called sources before Jonathan explained the file structure.
Oh, okay, okay.
So it might just be an artifact from that.
That is fair. That is another. That is if there's hundreds of things, then
Like
that,
there were so many folders, and it was like, well, if you find one of the files, maybe they're all in there.
mhm. Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah, this will
But
always be.
the comment is totally valid though. Yeah.
That's fair.
We should just log all the directories anyway in debug log,
Yes.
like regardless of whether there's an error or not.
Yes.
Let me add that comment. I'll add that comment. Where are these comments? Am I in the right place? Oh, is this just part of a review and it hasn't been? Okay.
Yeah, I do all my review comments and then I publish them
That makes sense.
afterwards.
Then I'll try to remember to add it later.
Sorry, I might have done stuff. One second. Sorry, you said it cut
I
out. My
might just-
headphones died right as you said that.
No worries. I'll just try and remember to add it later.
Okay.
We should just log all the DERs. Regardless of erroring. This is a weird coloring. That's the contrast coloring.
Okay. I think most of that is fine, other than the stuff that we talked about.
Yeah. And the last thing is the behavior change, which is previously, if a file wasn't found
Mhm.
or no files were found or something, there would be an error and the tests would stop. We don't do that with
Oh.
other inputs, right? Well, one could argue that we sort of do that with other inputs. But whenever I've asked, almost every time I've asked before about whether these things should be permissive or not, we've said they should be permissive. That's been the conclusion, right? So to make this more permissive, I have to return that the row wasn't used and just continue onward. So that if it is a step that says, I upload this whatever, or I set this variable to whatever, it records that the row wasn't used, and then it does throw an error. But if it's in a table, then it records that the row wasn't used and doesn't throw the error.
I guess that is fair and consistent. The thing that I'm struggling with is that, and I don't know if it's just me. I don't know if it's just a me thing, but I really do struggle sometimes with like it being very unclear what actually went wrong when like writing tests. And then sometimes I'll go back and it'll be like, oh, I misspelled an option. And so that like row was never chosen in the table and it tried to continue and it's like, oh, we ran into an error. And I have to pull up the screenshot. I have to realize, oh, it's because it tried to set a specific value on like that drop down or something that didn't exist. I have to then go into the interview and figure out what the value is. And like, you have to do some of that anyway, but it's a lot. You can skip a lot of that jump if on somewhere where it's like we tried filling in these things from the table and it didn't work. That was like more clear, then it fixes a lot of things, or it makes it a lot quicker to iterate.
Yeah, but this does say,
But
this will tell you that the row wasn't used, which means it'll say unused rows.
That
And
does
the
not help
upload.
though, because every row is unused. Like,
No, not every row is unused.
Does
What
that
do you
not
mean
show up for
every row
everyone?
is unused?
Well, if nothing is fit in, then I guess okay, this is a different definition of unused row. Of I hear unused row and I think, oh, every row that isn't actually being used to set the value, but you're specifically thinking a row that has the right variable name, but that the value is wrong or something.
All it can tell you is whether the row of a table the variable was found and the value was used.
And that's the thing, is that most of the time I can find variables, okay, but the value won't be used. And I'm pretty sure in all of the logs that looks exactly the same as just like the variable was wrong or something. And that's the thing that I don't think we should be permissible about, because it's very clearly someone has like written the wrong value.
Well, but for that, there is
This
the
is a separate
message
thing,
that,
but
but for that, there is the message that the uploaded the files to upload weren't found.
yes, you just said we're trying to change that though.
No, not that part.
The message will, yes, because the message will still be there, but it's not going to be the final thing. It's going to be like the second or third final thing. And the final thing will be, oh, we tried to continue, but like, we don't know what happened, which is one of the worst errors you can have, because it's not very clear and you have to look at the screenshot for it.
Or you have to look farther back in the report.
You have to look, well, you have to look at the screenshot before you can tell what in the report is actually valid. Like, you have to know where it ended at and where it stopped.
Well, I'm not sure we're talking about the same printout of the report. The report would say like screen ID, upload your files, right?
Mhm.
And then it would say, you know, warning, couldn't find these files, and list the files that couldn't be found. And then on the lower down, it would say, like the thing couldn't continue, or it would get to the end and it didn't care that it couldn't continue, right?
Yeah, and that's okay, but I think that's like less likely to happen. I don't know. It feels like it's less likely to happen than, and for tables, it makes sense because we are encouraging people to do that. And I am, all of this to say, this is like big discretion from what's actually in this interview.
Well, it is a change in
Or, sorry, this
behavior, and
feedback.
that's part of what I wanted to discuss, ideally. So
That's fair.
it feels valuable to me.
It is a change of behavior. I think that, clarify, I think the change of behavior is fine. I think as if there are steps where we specifically say like, upload this file or like set this variable to these files and it doesn't work, that should err right away right there. That if it's still doing that, that's good.
Yeah.
And if the table, I think the table stuff is just a bigger can of worms. That is the thing of, okay, most people, like, we're encouraging people to not just say, I set this variable to, I press continue, I set this variable to, like, we're trying to get people to use the table. And so if the table still has bad functionality, like bad airing and bad functionality, we should address that at some point. But I think that's not like this.
So,
I'll have to say that was a big digression.
So what you're saying is, well, this is okay. Like, this discussion is really useful to me. So I think it's really useful to the project, really. So you're saying now the table can't error if a variable isn't found, because a variable, you know, you only have, you go through all the variables and not all of them are going to be found on each page, right? Because
yeah.
So if a variable isn't found, but what you're saying is if a value can't be set, then there should be an error.
Yes.
Is that what we're saying?
That's what I am saying.
Could we make an issue
Sure.
To at least discuss this more deeply, but maybe just to work on that behavior? Because that to me does sound like a significant distinction and one we might be able to make. I'm trying to think. Oh, we could detect that in other our ways.
Mhm.
There are ways. And there are
Nice.
ways it does that now. Um,
This really- I'm trying to see if we have any related things.
mhm,
Oh, okay, no, it's a different thing.
think so. Variable, yeah. Sorry. You know what? I'll let you finish instead of. Because that does change a bunch of other behaviors too. If we want, we can. I can change that behavior back here. Then we'll have inconsistent behavior, but we won't need to.
I don't think it I don't think it needs to be changed for this PR. I think consistent behavior is fine for now. And I think
Okay.
this issue needs not necessarily like more discussion, but it does need some more thought onto how to make sure that it's like we're pointing out the right stuff, and if we're making it clear like it's failing here because of this, go fix this. And I think that
Yeah.
needs more thought, and I think we should just keep it consistent, and then when we go back, we can make sure we change it in the same way such that they're both everything is failing in the same way. Like if they type in a
Sure.
file that we can't find, we make it fail the exact same way as if they typed in like help with 2 P's and they meant to select help with 1 P or something. So
Yeah.
I had a branch a long time ago that had some.
Oh my God, we have so many branches.
I know.
I try and delete mine, but I can't. But there's some that are in there that are like
Yeah.
feature or bug developments that like I just haven't had time to go back to.
I don't think it's this one. This is not a very big patch. I may just turn that into a patch and yeah, I'll do that in a second. I'll turn that into a patch and then just put the code change in here and then delete the branch because the branch itself is not super useful other than just what this diff was. So
Hmm.
that can be changed. That's pretty good. Okay.
I don't know. You can just point to the branch if you don't want to give yourself homework to do. I'm super into
That
not
takes
giving you homework to do.
it takes like 2 seconds. I just don't want to. Accurately takes like 2 minutes. I just didn't want to stop for 2 minutes and do
Okay,
that in the middle of the call.
okay.
Okay, other than that, I think it's good.
Okay. Wow, that was super fast.
Wait,
It's
actually,
much faster than I thought it would be.
um,
Maybe I won't be able to keep us entertained quite as long. I'm gonna have to rewrite the documentation for our loops. God. Gosh darn it. Gosh darn it. Trying to remember all of our small setup. Hub. Playground. We don't have pull requests there.
update as described, and I want to see, is there a quick
In case you're planning to do anything sensitive, just remember,
No, for sure. Nothing, none of this should be sensitive.
okay, just don't go to your
It's just
config or
meant-
anything.
No, not config, just
Okay.
doing Docker, listing my Docker images, which all of them are none, because that's what happens.
You have so many images. My computer does not have the memory for that many images.
Stacked, I think would work.
Hmm.
Yeah, Docker symbol, right?
But it's
Oh,
not
it's
the name
built-
of an image. It's
Well,
.file/doc symbol.
Well, there is a Docker symbol OS, but I guess you can't tell what version of that Docker symbol uses. I guess it should be able to tell, but it's just gonna be like in here in the middle, probably.
No, it's not as big as I thought it was.
It's 10 gigs.
No, I meant the object.
Oh, okay.
I was like, usually these things are like
They're much
10,000
bigger. Yeah, that's
lines.
fair. No, the Docker ones are readable. They're pretty long, but they're still readable. Okay, so there is no.
Do you remember what you did when you updated
April 9th.
Docker OS?
So sorry, I'm trying to find I was trying to see if like there would be a easy way for someone to be like, oh, I am running this Docker container version of Docker symbol. But I was hoping you could just tell like what the OS version was, and it does not look like you can. So I'm just gonna say if you look like, so if you have 1.4.45, which I think you can get by just doing that, and it's always called latest. It's always called latest. Oh my god. I forgot he did that.
Hmm.
Okay, there's not
It's a
any more.
common convention, so there's nothing
Well, so-
identifying it.
It's common convention, but the issue is that he doesn't use any other tags and he always changes the latest tag. So, which is fine, latest is fine, but you should also be able to figure out what version something is. And there's no way to do that, it looks like. I thought there would be, it's frustrating that there's not.
I mean, could you look it up with the commit,
What do you
the
mean?
commit SHA? Could you look up the tag of the commit SHA?
The commit SHA is not going to be available because it's through Docker, and Docker doesn't like have an idea of a commit.
Really?
There's the Docker SHA, but that's not going to tell you anything.
It's not
That's
going to
just
tell
gonna-
you the GitHub commit, no.
Well, we don't need a GitHub commit. We could do
Oh,
everything
no?
based on Docker SHAs, but that's not really helpful because they don't.
They're not
Either
incremental.
way, SHAs don't have a concept of this one came after this one. So
Yeah.
so we can't say, oh, you have something that's after 1.4.45. We just have to sort of, like, you just say, oh, you have 1.4.45 or you don't, and that is not useful for everyone.
We also
So-
need to say that it's not the same as updating the package, because that was my assumption. Was that we just
yes.
needed to update the, Docker symbol package management package.
Exactly. Yeah, no, you're right. And that's what I'm trying to figure out here is
Yeah.
you can, like, if we're only looking at the Docker side of things, then we're not going to have the issue of, oh, you've updated the package, but you haven't updated the Docker container. But it doesn't,
Yeah.
just doesn't look like there's enough. Maybe actually this might be enough. So we do inspect, then we. Where did they go? Why isn't crap working?
Does grep do JSON?
Oh, I wasn't doing inspect, I was doing list. That's why.
Oh, okay. It's a string, okay.
Yeah, it's just a string. Okay. I'm tempted to just give people this and then,
Sure,
Have
with
it
with
say
the
if they're-
command though, give them the command you made.
yes,
you
yeah,
wrote.
yeah. Yeah, so have them run that command, and if it says it was created after April 9th, then you're okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Your terminal, I think. Yeah. After?
This is saying you do need to update if it's before
Okay,
that
I
date.
see.
You can update it just right there. Okay. You can take that to suggestion or rephrase it to whatever we wish.
Sure.
I just wanted to make
That's
sure I
that's some
actually
great
did that.
information. Yeah, I would not have found that same information.
I'm sorry, I only know how to find it because I made that commit. I remember when it was launched. And this whole thing was like, I've done this before. Why is it still an issue? So,
Yeah,
okay.
okay.
Oh, there's some, shrink wrap has
It actually,
No.
now that I fixed it, we don't technically need that there, but they're gonna need it at some point anyway. So
They will need it at some point,
I'll
yes.
put it there.
And most notably, I think they'll need it at some point and they'll suddenly need it when we don't know about it,
Yeah,
because
we've
I guess they
updated.
might not with shrink wrap. But we'll come across it unexpectedly when we update shrink wrap and all the other versions of packages get updated and something breaks with Node 12. So
Yeah, I mean, I was doing it on version 5 with shrink wrap and it broke, so
Yeah,
it didn't work, you know?
yep, okay. Close all of that. Random was next, I think,
Not the pull request, I think,
just in
but
general.
the general, yeah. Um the general count 3-part state. Oh, that's a different thing. Yeah, the general flows that we're gonna have to change and the various problems that are with it and just troubleshooting it. I don't know if we have that much time.
Yeah, go for it.
So let me look up random in our issues.
I'll let you.
Read
Share
this
and
one,
drive.
sure.
Yeah, I couldn't find any issues that looked like they matched, but
So, there are these ones that we filed. Oh, is my computer freaking out again? It's been so long. I may or may not end up having to disconnect. So one thing is I was kind of waiting on Jonathan to do this thing which would be able to tie variable names directly to how to find the variables in the DOM.
mhm.
But I haven't seen it in any of the releases, which doesn't mean it hasn't happened. It just means that maybe I need to ask him because he might not mention it in a release.
He's
God
made some
dang it.
DOM changes recently, but because I know there have been things broken in the DOM recently. But yeah,
Yeah, but I think I don't think it's been this stuff. I've looked
Okay.
through some of the commits and I haven't found the things I would have been expecting to find, which doesn't mean that maybe I have misunderstood what needs to be changed. But
mhm.
so that's one of the things. We haven't been taking any notes. I haven't been taking any notes on anything in the meetings doc.
I can start taking notes.
I can give you a sec to
Just keep
find
looking
that.
at it. You don't know. No need to.
Okay. So, but one thing is random answering for list collect screens. I'm not even sure if list collect screens work without random answers, but I can't click on any of them now. Okay. But the radio buttons thing, I think we're going to have to change the whole structure of how the page is read and kind of collected.
Mhm.
So that we can group answers together. As opposed to right now, we're just taking all answers, all fields individually. And we're not doing like field sets, as it were. I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly how DocAssemble uses field sets, but
It uses one field set.
yeah,
for
that's
the
the
whole
thing.
Yeah,
but
yeah, you're right. Like
radio buttons in HTML
are all
obviously
different.
are grouped already,
Mhm.
but these are not grouped. So we have to figure out a way to figure out what groups checkboxes or and radio buttons, or alternatively 3-part dates, which also look funky in random input tests because each individual field gets an input, but the actual field is the one that the random answer goes into, and that's usually a different field.
And that one's like hidden, right? Yeah.
And that one's hidden. So you don't see the same thing that gets set. So we just have to figure out how to deal with groups of fields
Mhm.
for radio buttons and for checkboxes, and then for our custom stuff. I think another problem, I think the back button, we totally nixed that in the PR. But I'm not completely sure. And we had some other errors, but I can't navigate anywhere because my computer's dying. We had some other bugs with it. Don't take screenshot of signature screen or fix the screenshot bug. I think we may have fixed the screenshot bug. Fix the signature screenshot bug. The Puppeteer error, I haven't been able to recreate. And we have to wait for, I think one of the things is we have to figure out how to detect navigation better, which is a whole thing. And if we want, we could spend some time looking at how navigation is detected, not on my computer apparently, but
Okay,
that might be a good use of our time, because that is a whole mess that I don't even remember anymore because it's just so, well, because I have no memory, but because it's also super complex, but I can't, I'm gonna
I
try
can-
to stop sharing.
I was about to say, I can take back, there we go. You can take back screen screen and you can do what we wish. So this is, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
So one part of it might be we can look at the code. It's in the after step of scope.js.
In this branch, in the random branch specifically, or just on main?
It's just on version 5. I mean, we haven't changed it since version 4, so it's not going to matter.
Yeah.
But scope and then after step, which needs to be renamed because it's not really after step and broken up into multiple things. So one of the problems here is that this happens whenever an element is tapped. And so I think we should split out tapping for navigation versus just tapping anything else. And that way we can just check for navigation when we expect navigation. But the thing is that sometimes when you tap to navigate, when you tap a thing, sometimes the URL doesn't change because you're not navigating. Sometimes when you tap a thing, URL does change. And sometimes when you tap the URL, the URL tap to navigate, the URL changes, but the page itself doesn't change. So for example, if you're in an infinite loop, then the URL will change, but the page will not have actually continued to the next page, which is kind of a halting problem. So I'm not sure we can solve that problem. It's a halting problem because you don't know when a loop is an infinite loop. You don't know how many times you've looped.
I guess.
So I think those were the main problems that we can probably look through and see what we're trying to detect and the different ways we're trying to detect it. And get some more details on what it is we thought was going on.
Yeah. We attempted to load the affidavit interview just as like,
An example.
yeah,
So usually the number changes.
yeah, so number changes 2, 3.
So I don't know what happens when you hit a help button.
None of these would happen. I don't, we got rid of a lot of the help buttons in this one specifically.
Hmm.
Because we don't like doing help button, but that is a good point.
Yeah.
I don't think the URL changes when you have a help button.
I don't think so either.
we can
But
check
which is
because-
confusing because people, I think, will find it confusing to say, you know, tap the help button and not say that it navigates. I think they will think that it navigates when it doesn't.
Navigation's weird, and are you saying like people writing the tests specifically?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Like there are times when people will understand when things will use navigation and times where people will not understand, I think,
mhm.
where the test is going to, where the interview is going to navigate.
Where the help? I know there's a help in this one. I'm just trying to make. It's going to take.
Can't wait till we have actual validation here and it's much harder to just go through an interview. Hmm.
Oh, we don't have any. There we go. Example. So example is a help button. We call it example. No, that's not a help button. That's just a. that's not
It's
a help
just an
button?
under somehow. It
Oh,
is a help
right.
button. I guess help buttons have changed.
We probably, there might be a different behavior that we've just set. TBH, I don't remember that.
I think the URL will behave the same though, you know. I
Yes,
could be
yeah, the
wrong.
URL does behave the same, I think. Make sure that's something that shows up on multiple screens. Yeah, I guess everything in this interview is just under instead.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but I do think it's the same because it's a similar mechanism to how it shows source. But it just hides this instead of expanding something else.
Yeah.
Is what I've seen when I've done like accessibility checks on it. So
Okay.
URL shouldn't change.
So
And I think, but sorry, I think mostly that. And maybe that's hard. Of like most of the stuff in DocAssemble is not single page application stuff where everything is the same URL, but sometimes it is. And so
yeah.
I don't quite know how to handle that programmatically, other than like if encouraging more people, if like instead of clicking on help and then saying then I navigated, just being able to say click on help and then I see the term that I expect to show up when I click on help or whatever. More about like what people are seeing is the more important part and less about going to a new page or whatever.
Yeah, but for example, when you set with random input, the
Mhm.
3-part state, and it takes a little longer to continue. Or, you know, in the table or something, I'm concerned about the table as well.
Yeah.
How to wait for that navigation. And we could wait extra long time on each page, right, to like account for that, but that feels, I mean, that'll slow everything down. and is not guaranteed because of the speed. I mean, imagine if the server's just taking a second about it, right?
Mhm.
And then you lost that context. But I don't know. I think that it's detecting that the URL has changed, but I did a video of this. Oh God, it was too long ago. I think what happens is that the URL changes, but the page doesn't yet change, if I recall correctly.
Mhm.
So the 3-part date field is still there, even though the URL has changed. Maybe if we switch DocAssemble to using React, then there'll be information out there on how to like tell with a 1-page app when it's navigated.
Yeah,
I don't think you heard what I said.
no, no, I did. Draw the rest of the L of moving to React.
Okay, all right. As long as you actually heard that.
Sorry, that was a pretty disconnected, yeah. So that is,
Yeah.
I'm trying to
Yeah.
look through to see if there's anything else that we would be able to do things with, but there's not really, yeah.
I mean, what we could try and do is search that the trigger variable has changed. Not the screen ID, because the screen ID in a loop wouldn't necessarily change.
Yeah. Oh, I think I lost Michelle. Continuing her thought though, the screen ID does not change for this. The title of this job stays the same. The trigger variable will change, but that's only because we're asking about different things for that one. Yeah, so it is slightly changing. This is not quite what we wanted. Just a yes. And this can be 2 screens, I think, too. Yeah. I don't want another screen though. I just want one thing. Pausing share. For Michelle to come back. Other deductions, deduction name. It doesn't say the same thing. No. Second job. We got more of this. It always goes to another one. Only one thing. Oh, I did 3. Why did I do 3 jobs? This didn't, right. Okay. This one might be the one. User 0, select types. Menu 9.1 value. Ba, ba, ba. Oh, 0 value. Yeah. Yeah, it's the same. Or it would if I had an ID. Thing I should fix. Oh, awesome. Always stay on. I'm gonna pause again.
Okay, I'm back. I don't know if you can hear me, but I can't hear you because you're muted. Maybe you had to go for a sec. Um,
Sorry, I do have to hop out for a second. One more second. Be back.
time for lunch.
Okay, sorry. Actually,
Ah. It says you started screen sharing, but it doesn't actually show me your screen. So you might have to unshare and reshare. There it is.
No, there it is. Okay, I thought that's why.
That's why.
I did get to the point of this interview where exactly what we're talking about to show up, and I think what your solution you were saying is what we want, because here's a screen, we're getting user 0, non-employment 0 value, and we just say, oh, we're getting weekly or 3 times whatever, and then we go to the next screen. It is the same. I don't have an ID for the screen, but it's the same screen, like the same ID screen, but it's just with a different thing. So it also has different text, but I don't think we can rely on that. And so if we do have a different, and the difference in the triggered variable, that would make a difference in what we could do. And
Yeah.
I think that's the solution.
I mean, it is the most unique thing on the page. The problem with that is, I guess it's not a huge problem, but unless people are using generic or index variables,
Mhm.
they don't have to right now set a trigger, create that trigger variable on their interview. They don't have to add that to their post or whatever. But if we require this, then they will be required in order to properly detect navigation, have that trigger variable on their page unless we can find it a different way, which I don't think. I think the problem was that we couldn't find it a different way.
What exactly do you mean again?
So remember that part where they have it in the post content, that it's just this hidden div,
The hidden, yeah, I
that
remember it being the hidden div.
and it is
Okay.
called trigger variable. Its ID, I believe, is trigger variable, so you can look for that. Or trigger or something.
Just trigger, yeah. Yeah,
So, and of course it's encrypted. That's fine. The encryption should be, you
That's
can use ATOB.
yeah.
You need the console.
Yeah.
So, so it would require them to add some code to each interview is the only thing. Why,
Well,
when
they are,
otherwise it does not require them to.
don't we require it now?
We-
We don't
we
really
require
require
it
that one
for-
now, but we require something to be added to the page for us to actually even work, right?
Just for generic and index variables. Simple interviews that don't use those types of variables don't need it at the moment.
Okay.
So that would be the downside.
I don't think that's a super strong downside,
Okay.
considering it happens. Like, at least for a lot of people, everyone using assembly line will need it. And most people eventually start doing something that is similar to like I or
I've
X
seen
or
people
generic
get
X or
pretty
whatever.
far without it, but
You
sure.
can, but I don't know. I feel like it's a thing that it's not too bad. And at least to say, if they're doing it without it, they aren't going to run into this issue. This issue happens specifically when you're asking the same question over and over and over again. And
Well, but
it
if
only looks
what
like
we're
it's
looking, then we would have to have multiple ways to look for navigation as opposed to just waiting for this. Right? Then we would have to, and then in interviews where, for example, they have a 3 parts date where it changes the URL, but it doesn't navigate away fast enough, then it would have trouble. Am I making myself clear? Not sure.
yeah, that's not navigating away fast enough isn't related to this though, is it?
Well, if we used the target variable in order to detect navigation, then we would be able to tell when the page was done navigating. When, but without this, then we won't be able to tell when the page is done navigating, and we have no way to really handle delays that way. Delays where the URL changes, but the page itself doesn't yet change.
Can we really not, this is the thing maybe I'm not understanding. At the browser level, can we really not tell when there's like a page change independent of just looking at the URL?
Well, because it's a one-page app, we can't, because it's not changing in the browser. The browser page isn't. I don't think so.
Very much not how I thought this worked.
Well, there is something, because we can't, like, that's the way that navigation is detected with Puppeteer, but that doesn't always work.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember. We can look back through all the navigation issues. Cause like I recorded a lot of stuff when trying to figure out, you know how I am, just, word salad, but it should be there. I did try and record the struggles that we went through.
Yeah.
And there was just like no good way to detect navigation
Interesting. Okay.
that I could find, which of course, maybe you know more about the browser behavior or
Yeah, I thought I did, but I guess maybe I just don't. And it just is, which is fair. Okay.
like Puppeteer does a decent job. It does actually detect navigation. So maybe stuff is going on with the browser. On a lot of occasions, but not on every occasion.
I think
It
you're
like
right. Like stuff is happening less than I thought it should, but yeah. Oh. Okay. jQuery is silly. Okay, cool. That's fair. I guess that's the only way. God, I hate checking. Online. I guess that makes sense. I had never realized since everything else about the screen always changes on new things. I assumed that I just strongly assumed that it was refreshing the whole thing, and it is refreshing the whole HTML body. It's just not
it is, yeah.
actually doing a refresh page, which is weird and silly.
It's submitting to the server at least.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Alright. I'm losing the thread here. Okay, so we can't do that. I'm still at the level of, at the very least, doing random things. Because this is only for random tests specifically that they would need to add like AL or add the ID trigger thing, right?
I think that it might be a problem with story tables too. I could be wrong. But I think it might create problems with story tables as well.
How so?
And I don't know, like it's been so inconsistent. It's been so like just problems keep cropping up with it. With story tables for 3-part state specifically.
With 3-part state, are we? What are we? I think I'm losing track of what we're talking about now. Are we still talking about detecting navigation specifically for generic and like index variables?
Just detecting navigation at all is tricky in
Yeah.
DocAssemble. And specifically 3-part state was having an issue where it was consistently, the URL would change, but the 3-part state would still be on the page. And so Ailcon would start its process and then the page would change. And then really the DocAssemble URL shouldn't change until the page has changed, I feel. But maybe there's not a way to do that. Maybe that would take 2 submissions or something.
Well, it depends on what actually changes the URL. This is one of the things of IDON, which I guess one of those, like, I had assumed since the URL was changing.
I think it's
That we're
manually
actually doing it.
managed. I think it's managed manually by, you can change, you can manipulate
so?
location history. And that tells the browser in some ways that the page has changed.
We have
There are different ways to do it. If you look location, yeah.
just
history,
location in general. Okay.
sure. It should be, you know what, maybe React hid it and just called it location history.
Oh, okay.
If we found out how React did it. But I think it is, maybe if you look for history, because that might be less likely to show up in a million things.
Let's see if there's anything on
Manage your location.
browser session history. Concept usage. Move back, move forward. Go to a specific point. This looks like
History push state. There you go.
history push date. Okay, that's the thing that lets you change.
I believe so. Or replace state. Just
Let's see what Docker symbol is doing with that. Oh, yeah, okay. And okay, so this, okay, so backing up, this whole thing was to see if that happens before the new page loads.
well before the JavaScript on the screen is finished running, right? My suspicion is that it happens at the same time.
Okay. But
And
whatever
it doesn't
process, yeah,
doesn't wait for that. There's no way to tell when JavaScript is done running on the screen. So there's no way anyway for DocAssemble to be like, now the page is done and I will change the URL. Like there's no actual wait for it to do that.
well, there's no way to tell when like JavaScript has stopped or whatever, but DocAssemble should be able to know when its validators have finished running, because that's all it is, right?
Maybe.
And if it's a, yeah, I don't know.
That might be sufficient. I don't know. But like if
This
the
should
JavaScript is
change.
changing this page, right? And if that's what's taking, I guess it depends what's taking the time.
This changes it. Am I reading this right? So process Ajax. I
Yeah.
don't know where this is called from, and I get lost trying to read any of the JavaScript and DocAssemble, but there's
Yeah.
process Ajax, does some stuff. Actually, it's gotten back the data. It sets it all to blank, it embeds, and then it does target div HTML data body. That would reset the entire HTML of the body, right?
Yep.
Okay, and that is happening before. And also
No, that is happening after the URL changes, or
URL
rather,
changes right here. It's
yes.
probably really close, but it is changing.
Let's
The
see.
JavaScript to change the URL happens after the JavaScript to change the page.
But
And
it's
I guess
probably
it's a
not
matter of-
finished running. It's probably an asynchronous process that isn't done running.
You mean this one? HTML data body?
Yeah,
That's not async though, that's just jQuery.
I'm
There's
just
no
trying to
async there.
find, I know, but if it's, yeah, then I don't know, but it's doing the validation. It's in the middle of doing the validation and changing the JavaScript of the page when the URL is changed. So I don't know where the asynchronicity comes in. I mean, the Ajax is asynchronous, but that's containing everything else, so that shouldn't be a problem. Like, we can look at the 3-part state thing. I think I put my conclusion in there of what I discovered. Maybe it was something else. Hang on. To restore my pages, so it's gonna take a sec. Part state. There's an error. Etc.
Did this change or is it a different one?
No, maybe it was something else that was bothering 3-part state. Maybe just detecting the URL changes enough. I don't know. I thought I ran into a situation where the URL was changing, but the page didn't change. The URL changed, but the page hadn't changed yet, but maybe I am hallucinating.
I believe that you have. I don't think you're hallucinating. It's just a matter of trying to figure out if it's a like upstream error, like async upstream error that we can't address, or if it's something that we're doing wrong in our assumptions about how Docker symbols load and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Backing up. Is what's the best thing to like leave on for random stuff? Like, is there something?
Okay, so here's an issue that sometimes the page reloads the same page before moving on. It doesn't say about the URL specifically, so I cursed myself in the past, but
Is it 229? Yeah, 229.
yeah, 229.
Sure, it's on the closed one.
Michelle, who are you? Yeah, I thought I detailed this. Maybe it's in discussions, but
It's in was it not in 190? Sorry, I've been looking at this too.
190.
Is the thing where you talk about specifically URL
Oh,
challenge.
there we
or-
go. How did you
yeah.
find that?
It was closed, which was why it wasn't showing up.
Oh, 190. I don't understand what I'm saying, why I'm saying that the sought bar, that the trigger variable, which is, we used to call it the sought variable. Oh, I see, because when we've found an infinite loop, the sought variable doesn't change, but the URL does change.
Yeah,
So sometimes the URL changes and it's the same page, and sometimes the URL doesn't change and it's a different page.
that would be a curious thing. I'm not sure about.
URL changes, but page is not a new page. That won't work exactly because of the case we just ran into. It is 12:40 something.
Yes.
Should
Which is-
we call
Sorry, yeah,
this a day?
which I was trying to say, like, is there anything that like concrete that I could give you to make progress on this? We're circling around a lot of gigantic questions that are just very difficult that I know have been plaguing Kiln for a while.
For a
But is there anything
while, yeah.
specifically for if you're trying to make progress on random stuff that like would help before we leave, other than just like, oh, cool, we talked about this for 30 minutes.
Not unless you can think of something, I think.
Okay.
I'm gonna do one more look for deep dive, but we're out of time anyway, so dive. Need lots of deep dive questions.
Okay.
Like preventing developers from taking their own pictures of pages when they've used GitHub secrets. Or requiring people to use Alekiln at the start of their environment variables. Yeah. Giving feedback on hidden fields. Anyway. Those kinds of things. All right, I think probably we've done what we can.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Bryce.
No problem.